Okay, let's dive into this. Today, we're unpacking something truly fascinating, Unit 31 of our source material, which is all about the animal kingdom. But hey, we're not just going to sit here and read off a list of words. Nope. We're going to explore how we actually talk about these animals in real life, how we categorize them, and honestly, how deeply connected they are to our everyday human routines. So whether you're a total beginner with this vocabulary or just looking to fine-tune your skills, you are absolutely in the right place.
So let me ask you this. How many animals have you relied on today without even noticing? It's kind of crazy to think about, right? Because when we really look closely at our daily lives, like the exact foods we eat for breakfast, the materials making up the clothes we're wearing right now, or even the companions waiting for us in our living rooms, animals are completely woven into the fabric of our existence. And once you understand that connection, the English vocabulary we use to describe them, well, it suddenly becomes a whole lot more relevant and way easier to remember.
To tackle this, we're going to organize these words into 4 mental buckets based on how close they are to us. First up, household pets and care. Second, farm animals and babies. Third, what farm animals provide. And finally, number 4, wild and zoo animals. Starting with bucket number 1, household pets and care. These are the animals inside our homes.
Here's our baseline vocabulary for the classic household pets. We've got dogs, cats, rabbits, fish, and birds. These are the guys that live closest to us, literally right inside our houses and apartments. But mastering English vocabulary isn't just about memorizing the nouns. It's really about the active verbs that bring those nouns to life. Because when you have a pet, you don't just stare at it, right? You interact with it. You take care of it.
Which brings us to a super essential phrase, feeding your animals. Now, in English, we really emphasize the word feed rather than just saying we give food to a pet. The natural, native-sounding verb here is definitely to feed. Feeding your animals is just this core daily responsibility. Whether you're sprinkling little flakes for your fish or popping open a can for your cat, you are feeding them. Tying this phrase to that literal daily habit makes it instantly memorable.
And here's another incredibly common one: taking the dog for a walk. Notice the specific structure there. In our source material today, we aren't just saying walking the dog. We're really emphasizing the phrase taking the dog for a walk. Think about your own morning routine for a second, or maybe your neighbors. You wake up, you get dressed, and then you take the dog out. By linking this exact English phrasing directly to that everyday action, the vocabulary just sticks. It becomes a lived experience instead of just words in a textbook.
All right, let's move along and see how this builds. We're heading into section 2, farm animals and babies, life in the fields. So, imagine stepping out of the house and moving into these lush green fields. Picture the rolling hills, those peaceful winding paths, and traditional farms just sitting quietly by a river. This beautiful countryside setting is the exact environment for our next vocabulary bucket. So, use this image as a visual anchor in your mind, okay? When you think of the animals we're about to cover, picture them living right here in these fields. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. We need to look at how English handles the names of adult animals versus their offspring. In some languages, you might just slap a word for little or baby in front of the adult animal's name and call it a day. But English often uses completely different, highly specific words. For example, a cow has a calf. A pig has a piglet, a sheep has a lamb, a hen has a chick, and a horse has a foal. You really have to learn these pairs as their own unique sets. The adult and the baby literally have their own distinct linguistic identities out there in the field.
Moving right along to section 3, what farm animals provide, our daily reliance on them. So why do we keep these animals on farms anyway? Well, there's a fascinating linguistic shift that happens when an animal goes from the farm to the dinner table. And honestly, this is a very common stumbling block for learners, but once you see the pattern, it clicks perfectly. The living animal in the field is a cow, but the meat product on your plate, that's beef. The living animal is a pig, but the meat is pork. We use entirely different nouns depending on whether we're talking about the living creature or the food it provides.
But hey, it's English, so of course there are exceptions, right? For sheep, the meat product is actually called lamb, which you might remember is the exact same word we use for the baby sheep. And for a hen, the meat product is simply chicken, which is often used interchangeably with the adult animal itself. So while a cow becomes beef and a pig becomes pork, sheep and hens actually share their product names with their baby or general species names. Kind of quirky, but good to know.
And beyond meat, these animals provide an absolutely incredible array of everyday products. Obviously, we drink milk from cows, but we also rely on animals for the materials we wear. Think leather from cows and wool from sheep. And get this, the source material even points out that we rely on parrots for feathers and snakes for snakeskin to make certain clothing accessories. Literally parrots and snakes. It really broadens the whole definition of what animals provide for us and shows that our reliance goes way, way beyond the traditional farm.
Which guides us perfectly into our final category. Section 4, Wild and Zoo Animals, a journey into the wild. For this final bucket, we're moving as far away from the human home as possible. And when we study wild animals, grouping them by their traits is a fantastic way to lock in the vocabulary. Take meat eaters, for instance. According to our source material, this group includes the fierce predators you'd totally expect, like lions, tigers, and snakes, plus monkeys. But surprisingly, it also includes dogs and cats. Even though we've brought them into our homes and made them our pets, they still share this fundamental wild dietary trait with the lions and tigers out in the jungle. How wild is that? And this perfectly highlights another great way to categorize, by how they reproduce. Here's a look at animals that produce their babies and eggs. We've got chickens and hens, obviously, but then we also have tortoises, parrots, snakes, and fish. Just think about the sheer diversity on this list. By grouping animals by the fact that they lay eggs, we're crossing the boundaries between birds, reptiles, and fish. It basically creates this really unique, memorable web of vocabulary in our minds. So, we've covered a ton of ground in this explainer today. From the pets we walk in the morning to the tricky vocabulary of the farm, all the way out to the meat eaters and egg layers of the wild. So I want to leave you with this one thought. Now that we've explored the animal kingdom through this structured lens, what is your favorite animal? Try describing it, its baby, and its traits using the new English vocabulary we went over today. Practice it, and you'll definitely see just how much your understanding has grown. Keep at it.